Welcome to the Pitting Combination Podcast. I'm KJ Pilcher alongside my colleague Dick Briggs, ready to talk a little wrestling with you this week. A big week, the Iowa State duel this Saturday at Carver Hawkeye Arena. Starts at 6 p.m. And, of course, Iowa State week. What a great guest to have to talk wrestling. A former Cedar Rapids Jefferson wrestler that, Briggsy, you know really well, a colleague that I've been able to work with over the years, and a great Hawkeye as well. Mark Ironside joining us today on the Pitting Combination Podcast. Mark, how are things going? And how excited are you for this duel coming up on Saturday?
You know, I don't usually get into wrestling until it's like we get in kind of the meat and potatoes heart of the season, the Big Ten Conference season. But, you know, you got to look forward to the Iowa State duel every year. I mean, it's a huge rivalry. It always has been a huge rivalry. You know, last year Iowa State thought they had us for sure, and they probably should have. But you know what? Tom Brandon's and company, they just find a way to get it done. And that was in Ames, and the Cyclones, they put everything into that. They thought for sure they're going to get her done. But this year it's in Iowa City, and I think Iowa has the upper hand. As we're not a shoe-in to win by any means, and there's a lot of wrestling to be done, but I think it should be a very, very exciting dual meet. I know it's a very hot ticket to get because it's not on, you know, free TV, I guess. I think Big Ten Plus is what it's on. So it's not on ESPN or Big Ten, regular Big Ten or whatever. So you either have to listen to Stephen Grace and myself on the radio, or you're going to have to be in person to watch it. And it's at 6 o'clock on a Saturday night. So it's a pretty good time as well, too. So it should be a very entertaining dual meet to watch, as always.
So you brought up Stephen Grace, and of course, being able to listen to you guys, it's been a staple for a lot of people over the years. I want to ask you, how did you get into broadcasting and becoming kind of the voice of Hawkeye wrestling on the radio with Stephen? You know, I know you've been doing this for a very long time, but how did you get started into that area of your wrestling career?
Well, as soon as I got done competing in 2000, and then in 2001, just kind of entered the real world, so to speak. And Mark Allen and Maury Adams were doing the radio at the time. That's who was doing the commentator when I was competing. And then Mark Allen had an opportunity to start going over and doing women's basketball. And so once he left and went to do women's basketball, it opened up a spot, you know, on the wrestling broadcast for the play-by-play or the color. And so then they called and wanted to know if that'd be something I'd be interested in. And obviously, yeah, I'd want to stay involved in the sport of wrestling, especially, you know, within having that Iowa connection. And so I was like, yeah, let's try it and see, you know. So Maury and I just started doing the duels. And then I don't remember how many years Maury was there. He was through the Jim Zaleski era. And then when Tom got the job and he came back, then Maury stepped down, and then Stephen Grace came on board, which was great for me because Stephen Grace at the time, he worked for the radio station, and you know, he knew all the switchboard stuff. So if something goes wrong in the background or whatever, you know, it's like he can call back to the station and say, hey, you need to do this, this, and this with the tech or whatever. You know, he knew all that stuff. He knew how to set up the equipment. He was already doing Iowa baseball. So we didn't really miss a beat because I don't want to deal with any of the electronics or any of that type of stuff behind the scenes. Okay. If a day comes where I have to set up all that stuff and do it all on my own, there probably won't be a show. You know, I just want to show up and talk wrestling. And Steven at the time, he didn't know anything about wrestling. He was not a wrestling guru or anything like that. But he learned quickly. He was a student of the sport. He really picked up on things, and now he's phenomenal. He does a great job, and he doesn't even need me.
Right, you guys, it's fun to listen to you guys banter back and forth. And you're right, he has picked it up and does a great job. I've had the good fortune of being able to walk into you guys while you're on the air up in, was it Pittsburgh or whatever, at the national tournament, and kind of watch you. And so what's the process? Do you do a little prep before each meet, or do you just go with what Iowa sends out or whatever school they're wrestling sends out, or? And how do you?
Well, like I said, I've got the easy job. I just show up and talk wrestling. If we go on air at 15 minutes before the duel starts, I'm a lot of times walking into my seat, throwing my headset on as Stephen Grace is sitting there saying, "Welcome to the Iowa State duel meet 2024 to Iowa State." And I'm just throwing my headset on. I mean, I don't get on there until it's about my time to get on there. I have sheets that our SID sends out to us now, who is Sam Bassler. And I do a little bit of prep. I see who the opposing team is, what they're ranked, what the matchups. I mean, I do a little bit of research in that department or whatever. It's not like I just show up blind. But Steven's he's always been the kind of the stat guy and just behind the scene. I mean, he's like a walking encyclopedia. And the thing is his memory is razor sharp too. Like if these guys wrestled, I don't know right now the Iowa State meet last year, but if I say, hey, who did Drake Ayala wrestle last year in the dual meet? And he'll say, bam, and his score was probably this. And like he doesn't need to look it up. He's so good with that stuff. And like I said, my job is honestly just to show up and call the action. And he knows all the background stuff and the research. And if he doesn't, he's got the notes like right there, Johnny on the spot, readily available. And he'll be like, all right, hold on a second. I'll tell you, Mark. And he'll look it up. And that's why I love Steven, because he's just a walking encyclopedia when it comes to wrestling.
That's kind of how I feel working with KJ on air too. KJ has a great memory and can recall all sorts of things as well. So I know what you're saying there. One last question on as far as prep is concerned. How do you get to know the incoming wrestlers? Do you have you get down into the room? Do you take them out hunting or trapping, or anything like that, or what do you do to get to know those guys?
Typically I get into the room and I'll sit there and I'll sit in the bleachers or whatever and have one of the coaches or something say like, oh, hey, who's this guy, who's that guy, or whatever, and kind of pointing them out and give me a little bit of background. But I haven't done that this year. And I haven't done it as much since COVID, because I used to be able to get into the arena in the room anytime I wanted, whenever I wanted. But after COVID, and they really kind of the university put a kind of a stop to anybody outside. Obviously during COVID, like even the athletes and the coaches couldn't even be in there. But then once it came back, they put it to where, I mean, you had to have pretty high access and status to be able to even get into there. But now, I just the other day, I got all the credentials and everything that I needed to be able to got my little pin card or whatever and my face recognition done and stuff. So I can get into the room and I don't have to call Mariah to, come open a door or something like that anymore. So now I can kind of come and go as I please. And I'm looking forward to having access back to that, to the room whenever I need it or want it as well. So, but other than that, just being honestly on the road with the guys is where I get really familiar with the guys and kind of learn kind of their personalities and what they're like. And whether it's sitting them next to them on the bus or the plane or hanging out in the hotel or whatever, you just get familiar with the guys. And, some of the guys you get a little bit closer to than the others. I've taken a lot of the guys out hunting over the years and stuff. Patrick Kenny's gone out into the turkey hunting woods with me and sat and watched, some stuff go down. So he really enjoys that. He just got himself a bow and arrow this last year, and he's really learning, and he loves to eat, correctly. And he's all about his health, and there's nothing better for you than good organic meat, which is elk, and then even the deer and stuff. So as you know, Coach, I get you some deer here and there once in a while too. So he's really into that. And now he wants to go out and start getting his own. So good for him.
I do remember you bringing Steve Mocco over after he shot his first turkey. And I had just met Steve at the house, and he when he was handing over the turkey, I felt like he was handing over his puppy or something. Like he didn't want to.
Yeah, I forgot all about that. I enjoy the nature. I enjoy getting outdoors and hunting, and as you know, and I really, really like taking guys out and getting them their first turkey or deer or something like that. Over the years, I've taken a lot of guys out over the team, and you got to make sure that everything is legit on the up and up, and that they have their proper license, and they have everything, obviously, to be able to do so. And if they don't, then they just come out and they just tag along for the fun and watch. So, but I've taken a lot of guys out over the years. And I forgot all about Mako being one of them until you mentioned that. And you really get to learn a lot about someone once you get out in the turkey hunting woods or the deer hunting woods.
Well, it's just funny because here's this big monster, intimidating looking guy with these puppy eyes going, here's my turkey. I felt kind of bad.
So who's the best shot out of all the guys that you've taken out?
Who's the best what?
The best shot.
Definitely not Metcalf. Metcalf
Really?
is by far the worst. Metcalf, oh my goodness, that guy will miss. He's got to be the luckiest guy ever because, like, the first turkey that I took him out to shoot, actually, he shoots, he misses. The turkey runs off, he shoots again, and like stuns the turkey. So this turkey is like running around. Now the turkey doesn't know where the shots even come from. And the thing was, I had it on video. I was videotaping this, and so when he first shot, the turkey ran out of the screen of the camera. So he shoots 2 more times, and then he goes to shoot a 3rd time, and the turkey runs back through the screen of the camera without even me moving the camera. I'm focused on the bird. I loaded the gun for him. I only put 4 shells in there. So, or maybe it's only 3. I think I only put 3 shells in there. Normally, I mean, it'll hold 5, but for turkey hunting, you only need 1. I mean, you shouldn't need more than 3. And I knew I only put 3 shells in there. So I was like, after he shot the 2nd time, I was like, just stop. So I really got on the call and hammered the call just to get the turkey to stop and be kind of like, huh, what's that? And then he was able to freaking shoot him and get him. But yeah, it doesn't matter whether it's a gun or a bow and arrow. Metcalf, he's by far the worst. Phil Ketty missed the first time that he ever went to shoot a turkey as well, too. And I just went out elk hunting out west this last fall, and I went to Utah, and I stayed with Ketty, and we were talking about that, and Ketty was laughing about it too, because he's such a good shot and he doesn't normally ever miss, and he just kind of rushed it that morning. He was excited. He kind of got the jitters or whatever. And but Metcalf and then my daughters too, Hannah and Grace would go out, and a lot of times Ketty would maybe tag along with Hannah and I, and then Metcalf would take Grace, and they didn't have tags. They just wanted to be out in the woods, and it was fun for the girls because those guys were competing at the time. So it was fun for the girls to go and kind of have these guys tagging along and going out into the turkey woods with them and stuff. And it's just a lot of fun and a good camaraderie and stuff. But the girls always love to give Metcalf crap because we call it the Metcalf way, because it's like usually he misses once or twice, then by dumb luck he ends up getting whatever he's hunting.
Yeah. So I just want to backtrack really quick. You talked about broadcasting to be involved in the sport. I just have a sneaking suspicion it's more than just that. Seeing what you've done over the years with camps and clinics, broadcasting and everything, I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's this devotion to the sport more so than just being involved, where you're giving back to other, to younger wrestlers and stuff that you've done over the years. How important is that to you? I know this is a quasi job, right? As far as broadcasting, but I also have a feeling that it's another way for you to kind of give back to the sport, which seems to be something that's been important to you for a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that. I don't know. I guess I don't know. I don't really look as giving back as whereas I think the sport, maybe so, I guess. The sport's done so much for me throughout my entire life. I started wrestling when I was in Wilson Middle School, and I remember the great coach, as Coach Briggs knows, but the great coach before him, Bill McNeil, and legendary coach Bill McNeil, he was actually my gym teacher in 7th grade at Wilson Middle School, and he would send everybody else off to play basketball or dodgeball or whatever, and he'd roll out a section of the wrestling mat over here, and he would teach me wrestling. And honestly, that's how I started first learning how to wrestle, was through Bill McNeil in gym class. And he sent my brother Matt and I to the first camp that we ever went to, which, as you're very familiar with, was up in BV for Al Baxter. That was the first wrestling camps that we ever went to. We went up there for a couple of years, and that's kind of how I got involved in it. And then it just kind of started kind of taking off from there. It just become something that I became in love with. And the thing that I love about the sport of wrestling is because it's a great team camaraderie sport. Obviously, you go through some wars in the practice rooms and grueling workouts and stuff like that together, but it's an individual sport. And from the fact that when you're out on the mat you're by yourself. You don't have to rely on anybody else. If you win, it's on you. If you lose, it's on you, type of thing. A lot of people and coaches always help in the preparation, but when it's actually go time, there's no, okay, I'm tired now, hey, send a new sub in type of thing or whatever. It's you and against your opponent. And that's what I love about the sport. As far as giving back goes, I mean, once you do something for so long, for so many years, and it's in your blood, and it's like, in my opinion, the greatest sport that there is, it's hard just to completely walk away and step away from it. And this gives me an opportunity to stay involved in it and stay up on it. And, I owe a lot to Coach Tom and Terry Brands, and they helped me a ton through my career, especially at Iowa, and we become fantastic friends off the mat as well as on the mat. And that's one thing I kind of enjoy, honestly, even just as much as the broadcasting, watch the wrestling, is just being able to get to hang around Tom and chit chat. And I still take time out turkey hunting every single year. There's never a year that goes by. We've been going out and turkey hunting for years and years and years, and take them out every single year turkey hunting. It's like, and we don't talk wrestling, but the sport's definitely evolved. It's changed, as anything and everything always does. I'm not really a fan of the new scoring system by any means or whatever, but it's still all the same type of preparations and hard work and dedication and all the things that go into developing as a wrestler. Those things all stay the same, and those things make you as a person, and then they kind of spring jump you into life and where you're going to be and your career and stuff. And that's what I love to be around and enjoy by going with the team and doing the radio broadcasts.
2 comments to follow up on that. Coach McNeil came up to me when you were still in middle school and said, "This guy's special." And I said, "Okay, good." And he goes, "No, he's special." and then fast forward 2 or 3 years, now it's you and Matt in the wrestling room. And I got to tell you, and I've said this out loud many, many times, it's the best wrestling I've ever seen. You and your brother Matt going at it in the wrestling room. And I mean, there were some wars, like you. And I don't want to bring up any horror stories or anything, but I remember Haggerty and I are sitting against the wall watching you two wrestle and the rest of the room, and you're just thumping, you're running into walls, you're going all around us. And Haggerty looks at me and starts singing, "Everybody was kung fu fighting." It's like you guys are just all around us, and it just busted me up. But you guys, man, you brought something so special to that room. Not just what you guys did, but what you did to the people around you. And I'm sure that it was the same in the Iowa room and so forth. So it was a pleasure, man. One other thing, we didn't mention that Mark was a Hodge Award winner. Pretty much everyone knows that, but I'd like to know, where's the trophy?
It was in my parents' basement. My dad, once I got the trophy, my dad, who was really good at with woodworking, and using different tools and different things and stuff like that, he built a kind of like a pedestal stand himself, and he put it on that pedestal stand, and it sat in his basement for years. And then when he retired, he moved down into southern Iowa, where my mom is at now still, and it was into the basement. And then my brother Tim, who now moved into mom and dad's house that we grew up in, once he moved in there, I got it out of there, and then I took it home, and now it's in my basement downstairs in my basement on that pedestal that dad built with his own hands, which is pretty cool because he did that, and he wanted to have something special to kind of just put it on and make it look nice and stuff. So to put it on display on. So, but it's not anywhere, for everybody in the world. See, it just sits in the basement on this pedestal. So,
and I know how you are. The pedestal means more to you probably than the trophy.
For sure. 100%. 100%.
So while we have you here, we want to get your take on this duel coming up and what you've seen out of the team so far. I guess first off, wins at Oregon State at home, against Stanford, and then dominant performance at Bellarmine that was expected. What have you seen out of this team, and how are they kind of poised for this upcoming duel on Saturday, which is the 88th meeting between the two programs that began in 1912? Iowa leads 69, 16-2. They have won 19 straight, 34 out of the last 35 and 58 of the last 62 meetings.
Well, I look for more dominance out of Iowa, kind of obviously as they have, as you just reeled off all the stats. I mean, Iowa's dominated this series over the years, and Iowa State snuck a few in here and there and lost a few that they probably should have won. But I look for Iowa to, come out on top again, and I just hope that it's not we come out on top, but man, we got lucky there. We snuck out of there with a win. I want to come in obviously and have a good dominating performance, and that's the thing, and that's the key is. They wrestled decent against Stanford, and they wrestled decent against Bellarmine. Bellarmine wasn't a whole lot of competition, though, and Iowa State really hasn't faced a whole lot of competition either. And they also haven't had their full lineup in there either. So I don't really know what to expect at some of these weights. Just
a lot of either wars.
Yeah, a lot of either ors. Yeah, exactly. So, which makes it exciting because you're going to go into this, you don't really know what to expect, and it's going to be kind of a surprise. So, so that's fun going in. And people have asked me like, well, what do you think about this? What do you think? I don't know. I really, really don't know. One of the things that people are talking about is 174 with Aiden Riggins, who has been at Iowa the last couple of years and wrestled starter for Iowa last year, who hit the portal, went to Iowa State. Now he's going to be wrestling against, Iowa, and it's going to more likely, I guess, it's going to be Nelson Brands. It could possibly be Patrick Kennedy, but it's more likely going to be Nelson Brands, and so that's kind of a twist to the dual meet a little bit too, and. But I look for Iowa to win. I just hope it's in a dominating fashion. I know that the 197-pound match should be interesting with us having Buchanan in there now from Wyoming and hitting the portal and bring him out of the portal. He's going to be taking on that up and coming stud Carroll. Is it Christian Carroll? I think at 197. So I've heard really good things about him. I'm looking forward to watching him wrestle. So the 133-pound match between Frost and Drake Ayala, that's something where this is a big match for Drake Ayala. A really, really big match for Drake Ayala after he lost to Stanford. This is an opportunity to kind of knock someone off that's ranked ahead of him and kind of get himself back on the right track. So I'm looking forward to this dual meet, and it's going to be a lot of surprises that we don't know what's going to happen or how it's going to happen. If Bastida wrestles, him and Keeter is going to be another fun match to watch. So it's going to be a really fun, entertaining match. I look for, the arena to be completely, it's already sold out, but this is one where someone's not going to be like, I don't feel like going, here's my tickets or something, or my tickets are going to sit idle, nobody's going to be in the seat. Every seat in that arena on Saturday night at 6:00 is going to have someone in them.
Right. Iowa added 3 key pieces between seasons: Kyle Parko, Ja'Cory Teamer, you mentioned Stephen Buchanan. What have they kind of added to the lineup, and what have you thought about what you've seen from them here early on?
I really like what I've seen so far. We had against Stanford, we had 2 techs in that dual meet, and those were the main bonus points we had was 2 techs, and those came from Parko and Buchanan. The only 2 guys in the dual meet that got near fall points. And what's that tell you? You go for near fall points. You try to actually go for a pin, which nobody does anymore. Because of the near fall system, everybody pretty much goes for tilts, but near fall points are so crucial, and you get the near fall points, and they get the only near fall points we got 2 techs, and then Teamer gets a pin the other day in 24 seconds against Bellarmine. So, and he got a major decision the other day against Stanford. So these 3 guys that we got in out of the portal have really shined for us so far and really added a lot of spark to our lineup. So I'm excited. Hopefully they can continue to carry it over against Iowa State. Buchanan, like I mentioned, is going to have a good matchup here against Christian Carroll, and then Teamer and Perry. What's the name? What's the guys from Iowa State that was out last year?
Panero Johnson.
Yeah. That's, probably going to be a boring match. I'm not going to lie. It's probably going to be a really boring match, standing around, both guys respecting each other. But then all of a sudden, something's going to happen to where it's going to be entertaining. It's going to be exciting. So it's like one of those matches where don't get too bored and start looking around the crowd and kind of checking things out or looking elsewhere. You better keep your eyes focused on the match because you don't want to miss that 1 or 2 things that's going to happen. It's going to be really exciting.
Right. I know asked you about your favorite or most notable, memorable Iowa State memories? Do you have a couple of them really quick that that kind of stand out to you over the years?
You know, obviously everybody always talks about the Brooks Simpson and Eric Volker match. When I'm growing up, I'm watching Iowa public television and I see that. That's just a phenomenal match. It's a phenomenal duel. It's just a back and forth. That's what wrestling in Iowa it was all about, and that's what created a lot of excitement for me when I'm growing up. But also I just when I think of Iowa and Iowa State, I don't really have, well, obviously that Volker and Brooks Simpson one was a big one. And there were some things that happened when I was there too, like Doug Schwab, against Dwight Henson and stalling him out of the dual meet. That was kind of exciting, but when I think of Iowa versus Iowa State and a lot of the rivalry and stuff, you know what I think about? I think about growing up and sitting in the living room with my dad and watching Iowa public television back when they wrestled twice every year, the beginning of the season and the end of the season. And that's what when I think back to the memories and the highlights of of Iowa and Iowa State, it's not really one particular thing. It's more so the rivalry in itself and watching it on Iowa public television with Tim Johnson and Doug Bucher and just all the great analysis that called the dual meets then, and just the hype that went into it, the phenomenal teams that both teams put out on the mat all the time, the back and forth, the Jim Gibbons era, the Dan Gable era, and then when Bobby Douglas comes in, it carries it over as well too. So that added to it as well too. So I just love the days of Iowa public television and what it brought to the state of Iowa.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Mark, we really appreciate all the time that you've given us this morning and all the dedication to the sport of wrestling. You can listen to Mark and Stephen Grace this Saturday calling the duel on KXIC in Iowa City and all their other sister stations across the state. Mark, thank you very much.
You can dial into iHeartRadio and listen anywhere, anytime, and it comes in crystal clear. iHeartRadio, once they started picking it up, has really boosted the people that listen and the fan base. I mean, all over the world. It's insane.
That's awesome.
I cannot believe when people dial in where they say that they're listening from. It's not just 800 AM and you got to try and get your radio up high for the antenna to get to the nighttime anymore. I mean, we've come a long ways.
Yep, for sure.
One last comment, Mark, before we let you sign off, and that is you've many years been the top fundraiser for the Hawkeye Wrestling Club Arctic Plunge, and I just wanted to give you kudos for that. That's a great job helping those wrestlers and coaches and such out.
That's an opportunity for me to actually give back to the sport and the Iowa wrestling program. I sell T-shirts for a living. I mean, I make a living, but it's not like I have, buco bucks laying around. I can just go and just throw out all kinds of money and give it to the program. But that's an opportunity for me to use the contacts that I have and to be able to give back to Iowa wrestling and the Hawkeye Wrestling Club and the people that want to, further their wrestling after college, and I was one of those guys, and I struggled to have money, and we struggled to have money in the club, and these guys got it so much better now and than what they did before when I was maybe every other month getting a check for $400 to live off of. So this is my opportunity amongst other guys to give back to the Hawkeye Wrestling Club. And it's a great fundraiser for the Hawkeye Wrestling Club every year where they raise well up over $100,000 a year now. And if I can contribute $20,000 to $25,000 of that, that's big.
Awesome. Well, Mark, thanks again for joining us today. We really appreciate it. As you mentioned, you can hear him and Stephen Grace this Saturday calling the Iowa State Duel Cyhawk Series, 6 p.m. at Carver Hawkeye Arena if you're not there in person. Again, thanks again for taking the time out and joining us, Mark.
Thanks for having me on, and anytime you guys want. It's a couple of my favorite people in the whole world right here. So this is easy. It's fun for me. I like to get on a lot more often. So anytime you want me on, you just let me know.
Well, thanks again for Mark Ironside joining us on the Pinning Combination. Always great to hear from him, his insights, and of course, he's somebody that he's got a passion for the sport. He mentioned it's in his blood, and he is, for lack of a better term, he's pretty iconic in Eastern Iowa when it comes to what he's done as a competitor, and as a kind of the voice of Hawkeye wrestling for almost 2 decades.
Yeah, and he brings so much passion, like you said, and he's at his best. I mean, it's like he's brings this raw, natural opinion, and he's wearing black and gold glasses and seeing it that way, and that's what people love, on the Hawkeye channel there for sure. And it's fun to get him riled, whether a match gets him riled or some opinion gets him riled, and when that happens, I think the listeners really they get the best of Mark Ironside.
Yeah, and the thing is too, whether it's high school sports or college sports, sometimes you'll get a homerish, somebody that's just all candy canes and rainbows when it comes to their competitors. Mark's not that way. Mark's if an Iowa wrestler is not being offensive, he's willing to call that out, right? I think holds those Iowa wrestlers to a standard when he's calling, and he's not going to sugarcoat it if somebody's not, competing at a certain level.
Right. And I think we've kind of witnessed that the last 2 or 3 years in that, when you listen to Mark and Steven, both, now he's got Steven doing it as well, and that's good. Is getting the he wants the offensive guys to be aggressive and offensive. You heard him say it with us, and 2 guys going for the near fall points, and it was the 2 newcomers, and so that's just Mark. That's the way he wrestled. Foot on the gas pedal, 100 miles an hour, and he's the same way when he wants to watch it, and that's when it's entertaining. So it's fun to listen to him, and you're right, he gets down on him a bit. I mean, not hard, but just gets somewhat critical. He wants him to step it up. So
sure. I think he nailed it right on the head. Of course, this Iowa State duel, a lot of either ors in the lineup because of injury. On the Iowa State side, you still have 2 weights. I don't necessarily think they're it's the same type of competition with Peterson and Joey Cruz at 25 and Brands and Patrick Kennedy at 174. I think there are Peterson and Brands are the front runners there, but you don't know whether or not they'll give somebody a chance. Iowa State, we've seen some things, remember who was the 4-time state champ from Des Moines Roosevelt? Johnny
oh yeah. Geez.
Oh, I'll have to look that up really quick. But his red shirt got pulled one year at Carver. We're not really expecting that to happen. And then everybody I think remembers Sam Stoll, who was hurt, but all of a sudden showed up and came out of the tunnel and gave Iowa a much needed decision. That if they didn't have that, they weren't going to win. Wouldn't have won the duel that year. We've seen some guys get moved around. Gabe Arnold move up at Hilton. You can almost bet there's going to be some matchup that you weren't expecting to kind of come to materialize on Saturday, whether it's Tyson Terrakina coming out at 125, I believe for the first time this year, or maybe somebody we weren't expecting in the upper weights. Who are they going to send out at 165 between Gatan and Utin? We'll see how that plays out. But what do you think? Is it something that do you think there are a lot of question marks as far as who will see wrestling and how the outcomes will be?
I haven't seen the either ors. I haven't seen the sheet. I don't get that, but so I'm kind of from a different perspective. So but my question is, you mentioned Terakina, Swiderski, Johnson. We mentioned Bastida. Those are kids that are all have not been in the lineup yet. And if they're not in the lineup, I don't see Iowa State having a chance to win it. I mean, they need all of those guys in. Otherwise, really, Iowa. I don't. Depending on who Iowa State puts on the mat, Iowa could run the table. I think is what you're kind of alluding to. Unless Iowa State can put some of their top guys back on the mat.
Sure, and this is a duel where, I mean, it could run the gamut. I mean, it could be a dominant win. I think for Iowa, it could be a close win for Iowa State, and anywhere in between. I'll just give you the Iowa State probables here really quick. At 125, they've got Kyson Terakina, Asmani Diversant, and Adrian Meza. As you mentioned, Terakina hasn't wrestled yet this season. Meza, I believe, is coming off victory at the Grandview Open. And Diversant, a Cuban wrestler that's joined the lineup. He's 5-1 here early on. I believe he lost to Joey Cruz at the Grandview Open this last weekend. At 133, of course, Evan Frost. Really looking forward to that match with Drake Ayala. 141, they've got Zach Redding or Jacob Frost. You mentioned Casey Swiderski out for the season after suffering a knee injury in practice before the Navy duel that they won last week. Anthony Echmandia is the only one listed at 49, as well as Panero Johnson at 57. And Mark mentioned that that match as well between him and Ja'Cory Teamer at 165. MJ Gatan and Connor Uten. That one is kind of interesting. Who they might send out against Caliendo. Mark also mentioned Aiden Riggins. He's the only one listed at 174. And he's a former Hawkeye, transferred last year or in between seasons after wrestling for Iowa last year. And then the only other, there's Evan Bachman, Christian Carroll. The only other either or at heavyweight, Daniel Herrera, the former Ames State champ from California, and Younger Bastida, who hasn't been on the mat yet due to injury. So, there's a lot of different things Kevin Dresser could do with his lineup for Saturday.
Right now, there's no mention of Chittum either, right?
Right. No Chittum.
Okay.
In the probable lineup. Now, that doesn't mean things get moved around and he finds his way in, but I think he's been dealing with maybe some concussions or something like that too. Okay. And kind of.
Well, heavyweight is intriguing for sure, depending on who they put out, and actually either one of them. If Bastida's out there, that's fun. He's a goer, and he would be a higher rank than Keeter. But then Herrera is I think he won a couple of titles in California, maybe even before Ames, didn't he? And was a highly high on the recruit list.
Right.
Like maybe in the 50 range, I don't know, something like that, when he was coming out of college. So I suspect that Herrera will probably be redshirted this year. I don't know, he's wrestled once or twice already. And so he may only have one or two left.
Yeah, get a couple of them in now, and then when Bastida is ready to wrestle, put him on the shelf. So
right,
he's got 4 years after this.
Right, and so we'll see how that works out. And if they start at 25, which they usually do, heavyweight, the meat might be already determined. So, that might be an influence on who Iowa State puts out on the mat.
At first look, I think a lot of things favor Iowa, but when you start looking at the matchups or the possible matchups, I don't think it's as clear cut as what a lot of people will think. You know, you look at 133. That's a match I think could go either way with Drake Ayala and Frost and Evan Frost. You know, obviously both ranked in the top 10, both All-Americans. You know, that's one that can go either way, especially with Ayala up a weight from a year ago. Then when you look at 149, Parco, a four-time All-American, and Anthony Echemendia, that's you know, you can't count Echemendia out. I mean, that's a match he's going to be capable of winning for sure. That's not a slam dunk for Parco at all. And then when you look at 157, it'll be interesting. I know kind of watching Stalemate's podcast earlier this week. They brought up the fact that Panero Johnson medically forfeited out of the tournament on Saturday. You know, will we see him? I'm guessing we will, but you know, that's not necessarily a slam dunk or something you kind of mark in pen for a teamer either. If Johnson goes, he's capable of beating anybody anytime. You know, Caliendo at 165, you think is probably a favorite, but in the upper weights, you know, Iowa State added Evan Bachman from Utah Valley, who's a strong competitor. Gabe Arnold had a tough one at Bellarmine, despite being really dominant in his first two matches. Then at 97, Mark mentioned Christian Carroll and how high people are on him and Stephen Buchanan. You'd think Buchanan's a favorite, but, you know, he'll probably get a challenge. And then 285 with Bastida and Keeter. You know, if Bastida makes the call, you think that's one that certainly could go either way and maybe even favor Iowa State if he's healthy.
Right. And here's how I see it. Iowa's pretty put together right now, other than a couple of weights where they're either ors, but their either ors are healthy. They're chomping to get in there. And Iowa State's coming from a different mindset. And then really they're just trying to patch it up and get it back in, you know, get their lineup set. And some of those guys haven't wrestled yet, or maybe they're just getting their first weigh-ins in. They're you know, still, they might have a brace on. They're still, you know, having some sort of issue going on. So I just don't see Iowa State being able to compete with the strong Iowa right now. And but then I'll say, after saying that, it's Iowa State meet, so you just never know.
Right.
And so they may surprise me, but I really have to favor Iowa. And as much as I like the Iowa State lineup, we got to see who takes the mat. So right now, I have to really favor Iowa with what we've seen so far this season.
Right. And like you said, you just never know what can happen, but you almost have a feel that Iowa, with the way they're kind of set up, they're more in a mid-season feel, right? You've got guys, you know, the either ors on Iowa's side are more of, you know, you've got your number one guy and you've got guys that are capable to step in so you can use one or the other. I don't feel like there's a lot of competition in that. Iowa State's, a lot of it's caused by injury and who's going to be able to go. You know, this feels like, and I know Iowa State isn't going to treat it this way. And you know, the wrestlers and coaches over in Ames aren't going to be content with this, but it almost feels like a good gauge, right? Use this duel as a gauge to see where we're at, how we are, getting guys healthy and back in the lineup for later on with Cliff Keen coming up and stuff like that. But that's maybe a little bit of a feel that this duel serves more as a measuring stick for Iowa State more so compared to Iowa.
Right. With all the injuries, sometimes you just have to lick your wounds, like with the Stanford meet, and and that may be what happens on Saturday with Iowa State. Maybe they hold some guys out of their lineup to if they're not 100% going against the number 1 or top 10 ranked guy. Maybe they're this early in the season, they might have to just swallow the bullet on it, I guess, or whatever.
What's your number 1 match that you're looking forward to?
Well, I kind of like the heavyweight, the one I was talking about. Depending on whoever goes out, I really, if Herrera goes out, I'm curious to see that Herrera-Keeter match. Like I've said, the three transfers, New Year news. I mean, we got more than 3 transfers on the Iowa team, but the 3 transfers this year, they bring excitement, so they're fun to watch. And then I also like I said, Arnold and Keeter. They like to get out and get after it. Typically, you're right. Arnold had a close match against Bellarmine, but with that guy, he's fun to watch, and I like him. So I'm anxious for all of them.
I think 133 is the one that I'm kind of circling. Even in the loss that Ayala had to Stanford, I was talking to some people after that, and I go, it was a 15-10 type of duel, or it was a 15-10 decision. It wasn't like a 3-1, 4-2 kind of thing where he's still being offensive. Now, you're not going to chalk up a loss and go, hey, I scored a lot of points, or I was still offensive and lost, and have a moral victory. But when you're looking at it from the outside in, I think it's, hey, he's out there letting it fly, letting it go. I think I've really liked how Drake Ayala has been offensive and aggressive, even if it's giving up a takedown here or there. Now, I'm not saying it's Randy Lewis-like, but there's, everybody remembers how Randy Lewis would, score 5 and score 4 and then give up 5. Isaiah Martinez as well. He wouldn't mind giving up a handful of points because normally he was scoring 20 or 25 to do it. But I've kind of liked that with Ayala, not afraid to give up points because he's going to score more. And everybody knows this duel last year was really Evan Frost's coming out party, right? He kind of whipped up Brody Teske at 133, and then we saw what he did the rest of the season. So seeing these 2 guys go at it before Thanksgiving, I think is a fun match to really kind of focus on. And
I think that's what most people are looking at is 133, and it may be if Iowa State doesn't put any of those guys into the lineup and they've got kind of their second guys in there, that might be their best opportunity to win.
Sure.
And like I said, Iowa could run the table if that happens. But I don't think Iowa State's going to want that to happen. So they're going to try and put as many out there as possible, hopefully.
So what I think is interesting too about this duel, there is only one possible matchup that has happened before, which really surprised me. Joey Cruz and Ismani Diversant just wrestled at the Grandview Open. If they were to get the call at 125, that would be the only bout where the opponents have wrestled in college. Frost and Ayala have never wrestled. Locke hasn't wrestled at either of the Redding or Jacob Frost. Parkle and Echemendia, Teamer Johnson have never wrestled. Apparently Caliendo hasn't wrestled Gatan. Riggins was a former Hawkeye, so there hasn't been an Iowa State or an official match between Riggins and Brands and Kennedy. Arnold hasn't wrestled Bachman. Kind of surprised. Well, I guess maybe not. Bastida and Keeter haven't wrestled. Christian Carroll, a redshirt freshman, and Buchanan haven't wrestled. So I think that's kind of rare when you think of some of the matchups over the years Iowa's had and multiple battles between Cyclones and Hawkeyes. That this will be the first match against between the two opponents in all 10 weights, likely.
Well, yeah, you've got. I mean, we're looking at the Iowa lineup. You've got your transfers that are in there coming from out west, and then Oklahoma, and then you've got three freshmen in there, I guess, with Peterson, Arnold, and Keeter,
right?
And the opportunity. So I guess that's good. That's deep work there, KJ, to come up with that. I hadn't thought that. Good job. It's surprising, but I guess I can see how it happened with so many newcomers to the lineup.
One of the things to mention, kind of the one-sidedness of this duel. Iowa State hasn't won since 2004. Iowa's 13-0 since they created the Dan Gable Traveling Trophy, which will be on the line on Saturday. When Mark was with us, he mentioned, there have been some times where Iowa State seemed to be poised for a win and just kind of let it slip through their fingers a little bit. Tom Brands is 18-0 as a coach against the Cyclones, whether it's Sanderson, Kevin Jackson, or Dresser. Does it still have the same, aura about it with Iowa State, given the fact that it's been one-sided for a while?
I don't think so. I think Iowa State's got to win one or two here to get that rivalry back up to a rivalry status. Right now, it's pretty much owned by the Hawkeyes, and so I think you're right. It's kind of lost a little bit of its luster, and but once Iowa State wins a meet or two, that would put them back into the conversation of a rivalry. I mean, it's always a rivalry in-state, two in-state schools going at it, but it's pretty much a dominance.
Yeah, and Iowa State's been a lot more competitive under Dresser in the recent meetings, but what's the old saying? Close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, right? So, yeah, Iowa State looking to try to get one. It could be an uphill battle this Saturday, given their injuries if they don't have their full lineup in Saturday. But I got a feeling, regardless, Iowa State's going to be a much tougher team probably after the first of the year than maybe right now because of those injuries.
Oh, for sure. I would agree.
Well, any final thoughts about the Cy-Hawk Series duel coming up this Saturday at Carver?
Nope.
Well, let's look back at last weekend, and obviously the kind of the biggest news or the biggest happening. The National Wrestling Coaches Association All-Star Classic was Saturday at Penn State in State College, Pennsylvania. The marquee matchup there, two national champs going at it. Parker Kikeisen from UNI against Carter Starochi of Penn State, 2 4-time All-Americans. Keckeisen finished third, second, first. Starochi's won the last 4 titles at 174, now up to 184, where Keckeisen has been, and they battled. Starochi with a takedown in sudden victory to win 4-1. Coach, what was your takeaway from that match?
Well, I would say this. I think all things favored Starochi. I mean, he's a great competitor, great athlete, 4-timer. But what I mean by that is he's wrestling in his home arena with his home crowd, slept in his own bed, ate, everything. Got up. His routine was the same. Wasn't disrupted with travel and that sort of thing. Not to make excuses, but everything favored Starochi in this matchup, and good for Parker for putting it out there and wanting to have this matchup. And I think I was impressed, and it came down to an overtime takedown on the edge of the mat, and I think I think that's what's going to have to happen in the later on in the season in the national tournament if they meet up again. Take it deep into the match and keep the pace up to get to Starochi, and then maybe Parker can get that takedown at the end. If he doesn't get it sooner. But I think wrestling up at 84, and maybe by the end of the season will be different. But I think we can get Starochi tired there.
That was the exchange escapes in regulation. Each had one really good offensive attack that they just couldn't finish. Can't remember if it was in the first or second where Keckeisen got in on a really good high crotch. But they end up going out of bounds and he's not able to finish. Keckeisen did a nice job fending off a low single attack that Starochi had. So each had like one really good attack that they initiated in regulation, but credit the other one for being able to kind of fend it off. But Starochi, I mean, boy, it's kind of his MO where he'll just do that one thing and be able to pull things out. It's just seems like when he looks to conjure something up, he capitalizes on it, and I think he was just able to kind of do a nice job there in sudden victory, kind of catching Keckeisen off guard, and did a nice job finishing on the edge.
Right. Well, he's so athletic, even when you're tired and when it's on the line, he dug deep and got it, and kudos to him. But a lot of Iowa, particularly Iowa Hawkeye fans, would say that's the Penn State way.
Right.
Right. You described as Starochi.
If you're Keckeisen, what are you pulling away from there? Are you pulling away the fact that, hey, you were just one finish away from winning that match? That you're right there. Keckeisen is the type of person working with Lee Roper and Schwab and Randy Pugh and Brett Robbins that he's gonna. They probably already dissected that match 7 ways from Sunday. And kind of looking where he can improve and what he needs to do to get better. And you taking that away from.
I think Parker came in to this match with the mindset that I can beat this guy. And I think did he beat him in high school? Did Keckeisen beat him maybe at the?
I'm not sure.
Fargo or not. I thought, for some reason I thought he did. So maybe. So basically he's got the mindset that I can win this. This is mine. I got, this guy's nothing special. And that's right there. That's so much a part of the battle is the mental part of it. And if you can come in with belief in yourself, which I've never seen Parker not have that,
right.
So I'm excited, but there's a lot of season and a lot of wrestlers in between the next matchup. So we'll see what happens.
We had some other Iowa wrestlers with Iowa connections in the duel as well. Hunter Garvin wrestled in it, former Iowa City West prep. You also had Cade DeVos, a former Southeast Polk prep, wrestling in it at Garvin at 165, DeVos at 174. You had Maya Davis from Grandview wrestle in one of the 5 women's bouts in the duel. And then you had Masoma Endine from Wartburg in the Division II, Division III matchup where he was dominant against Derek Blueball of University of Indianapolis. So second straight year, D3 wrestler wins in that D2, D3 matchup in the NWCA All-Star Classic. We had Dave Malachek on last week where Nolan Hertel won for him in this duel a year ago. And then now Wartburg's and Dean comes away with a win in this event too. So kudos to the D3 competitors in this annual event.
Right. And if you haven't seen the Dean's wrist snap down, man,
that was brutal.
So cool.
That was nasty.
Yeah, it was. Oh man. I mean, it just timed and hit it so hard, so fast. He spun his opponent on a 180. So all he had to do is basically drop on him. He hit it so hard. So sweet. That was nice. Right.
Yeah, and that's a good quality kid too.
Right.
We've gotten to see him compete here when the D2 national tournament was in Cedar Rapids, and that's a solid guy, and he made him look pretty silly on that.
I would have liked to have seen Dean stay at Wisconsin just see how he would have done Division I, but I think that was a lot of people that are kind of wishing that would have happened or would have liked to or whatever, but for whatever reason he's back at Wartburg.
Any other thoughts from the NWCA All-Star Classic?
No.
It's good night. Good night for Penn State. They've hosted this 2 years in a row. Obviously, a lot of things work in their favor, but they'll, got some good wins, and then, the Campbell heavyweight. I'm not sure if I should even try to pronounce his name. Giadali. I'm sure I'm butchering it altogether, but he got a win over Feldman from Ohio State, the Campbell heavyweight. So that's that was one that kind of stood out in the competition as well. So a couple other items, not necessarily locally related, that's transpired over the last week. David Taylor, he won his first 2 duels as Oklahoma State head coach. I think a lot of eyes are kind of looking and seeing what he can do down there. They've got a really salty lineup. In his first season, they beat Utah Valley 38-6 for his first win as a head coach. But even more impressive, they go into Oregon State and beat the Beavers 36-3. So I think 2 pretty impressive wins in David Taylor's first duels. And then the news coming out of Minneapolis over the week, Gable Stevenson is coming back. So, that immediately kind of turns heavyweight topsy-turvy a little bit. because now you're wondering how he'll be coming back after a little bit of a layoff from wrestling, and is it a battle for second place among heavyweights now with him back in Minnesota's lineup?
Yeah, I don't know where I saw it, but I was before our podcast this morning. I saw some heavyweight has already injured for the season and will be out after. I don't know. Maybe it was in fact a true injury, but on the other hand, if you're a little bit injured and Stevenson's back, maybe it's a good year to skip.
You get a medical red shirt and can avoid them altogether, right?
Right. And I will mention this, not to hurry through that, but you and I, while Parker was wrestling out at the All-Star meet, you and I had 5 champs at the Grandview Open: Corey Land, Cale Happel, Ryder Downey, Wyatt Volker, Lance Runyon. A lot of Iowa names there, huh? I love seeing that. And so they had 5 champs there, and their other kids did pretty well as well. And then you and I in wrestles, they've got a pretty stiff competition. On Sunday, they wrestled number 13 South Dakota State in their first duel. And then they follow up on Tuesday against Missouri, number 8 Missouri. So they've got 2 top 13 ranked teams coming up here this Sunday and Tuesday. So wanted to make sure we mentioned that. Should be some good wrestling there.
Yeah, and if you get a chance, if you go to you and I's Twitter account, there are a few things to kind of know about the duel and kind of some steps you have to take. It's going to be at the Unidome. The MVC volleyball, the Missouri Valley Conference volleyball championships are being held in the McLeod Center. So that's why this duel will be taking place in the Unidome. All the seating is going to be on the west side, so enter through there. And I believe that's the visitors' side of the dome. Tickets can be purchased online at the Unite Ticket Office. It's, from what I understand, it's all going to be general seating or general admission seating for there. The mat's going to be set up on the 50-yard line, and on towards the west side of the field. So there will be some mat side seating on the arena floor, the Unidome floor as well. I'm just trying to look. They're asking everybody. You can get tickets on the west side ticket window as well, in the parking. You guys will be able to see the signs for all that, but use the entrances. The northwest entrance for this duel. You'll see the side. They're marked over the entrances, and doors will open 90 minutes prior to the start of the duel. So, just so fans are aware of kind of the guidelines for Sunday with that duel against South Dakota State and of course the Jackrabbits. You're bringing back Cody Caldwell, a former Panther from Waverly Shell Rock, who's kind of becoming one of the top assistants in the region for sure. You've got some guys like Zach Glazier and Kobe Siebrecht, who transferred from Iowa to South Dakota State right before the school year. So, not to mention you've got 2 really good teams going at it as a whole. So, it should be a fun duel on Saturday or Sunday at 1 p.m.
Boy, that dome staff is going to be busy because the state football is this weekend, right? So they'll have to roll up that turf for the duel on Sunday. So good for them. They have to clean up the the dome as well.
Thursday. Yep, they have Thursday, Friday. Of course, they've got the MVC stuff going on for volleyball, and then the duel on Sunday. So, yeah, real busy time there at UNI going on.
Side note: I've skydived into the dome and landed at just outside the southeast entrance there years ago. I don't even know what it was for, but
really,
yeah, this is before the McLeod Center was there.
Wow.
Kind of neat.
Wow. You don't remember what was it, just for kicks, or was there an event going on?
There was an event, some event going on. I don't remember what it was, but
okay.
We skydived in. That's a pretty tight landing area too. I want you to
know. So a couple extra notes from the Grandview Open, really quick. You mentioned the 5 champs from UNI. Lance Runyon, making his heavyweight debut pretty much. He ends up winning the whole thing. Beat his teammate Adam Aronson in the finals. So UNI goes 1-2 in the open division there. And we mentioned Daniel Herrera being part of the Iowa State probable lineup for this Saturday. Runyon beat him in the semifinals 2-0. So Runyon looking really good at heavyweight. He's made that big jump, and off to a good start there.
Right, I saw a little clip of him. He looks good.
Does he?
Thick and solid, and yeah, I think he's going to do well at heavyweight.
So Iowa had a couple champs. Caleb Rachi won the 149-pound title. He beat teammate Kale Voinovich 4-3 in the finals there. And then I think the standout thing for Iowa, freshman Angelo Ferrari made his debut, and he rolled to title at 184. He scored 20 or more points in 4 out of his 5 matches. Had 4 technical falls, including a 20-5 win over Caleb Helgeson of Iowa State in the championship match. He looked really, really good. And then we mentioned Adrian Meza, MJ Catan, and Aiden Riggins in Iowa State's probable lineup for Saturday. They all won open titles at 125, 165, and 174, respectively, for Iowa State there as well. Switching gears to D3, kind of made note in the wrestling weekend that you can find on the Gazette.com. Cornell swept 2 duels over this last week. They beat Wisconsin Platteville 42-6 at home on Thursday, and then Blank Simpson 49-0 at Indianola last Friday. So 2 strong wins for the Rams and Coach Brett Hom and Carter Happel and the crew there in Mount Vernon.
Right. In other notes in D3, Co beat Central 26-9. I got to ref with Jared Voss and Jim Gatto this weekend.
Really?
At Anamosa. Good guys. Also talked to Austin Scranton.
Sure.
Champion. What a beast, man. He's going to start out the season, it sounds like, at 190, and we'll see maybe drop down after that. But he's such a good guy, and he looked good. Big, solid. He's a man.
He had a fantastic season this fall as far as football goes. Anamosa made the quarterfinals in Class 2A. I think they finished with 8 or 9 wins, and he was a big part of that as a running back. I think he was one of the state leaders in offensive yardage. He rushed for 1,723 yards and 18 touchdowns and he was a workhorse, 259 carries. So, when you break that down throughout like 10 games, that's a heavy workload. And he averaged 6.7 yards per carry. So when you talk about well put together and strong and, pretty much taking on shouldering the load, he also led them in tackles as well. So what a great athlete.
Yeah. And I asked him about football, and he goes, "Yeah, the season ended too soon." He was very disappointed. I go, "Well, it ends too soon for almost every team out there."
All but one, right?
Yeah, that's what I said.
I guess two per class, right? Because at least the finalists are still playing in that championship game. But like you said, ends too soon for all but those two playing this weekend in their respective classes. So
I suppose we should mention this since we had Malachek on last week, but they did a neat thing. They had 4 top-ranked students. I don't know, top 15 maybe, top 21, I guess. Loris wrestled Stevens Institute of Technology alongside lacrosse and the TCNJ, the College of New Jersey, who's ranked 11th. Loris is ranked 6th and lacrosse is 3rd. I watched that entire meet. The Loris one, they didn't have not the Loris, the lacrosse one. The Loris one was not on. I was not able to watch it. The lacrosse one, what an exciting meet. Lacrosse got down 15-0 and then came back and won the meet 23-15. They handed it off to their heavyweight, who's ranked number 1, and he got a pin. But it was an exciting meet. They had the number 1 ranked defending champion was beaten. The lacrosse wrestler beat the defending champ. By the way, his name's pronounced Gable. It's not spelled like Gable, but nice job. And then Wartburg beat Simpson 50-0, and Nebraska Wesleyan 51-0. Let's see. The co-invite is coming up this week, so that co will be there. Cornell's at the Olivet Duels, where they wrestle number 14 Ohio Northern. So we'll get a good feel for Cornell after that meeting. They also wrestle Olivet John Carroll and Heidelberg. Luther's off until December 6th. Wartburg and Loris and UD are at Concordia, which was I've been there a couple of times, and it is really a beautiful city. It's right on the shores of the Lake Michigan, the Gitchigumi, right?
Yep.
And then Loris also wrestles Buena Vista on Thursday, KJ. So
look forward to that.
Yep.
I might have to call my daughter and maybe put a little bet on it, even though I'm sure it's a losing proposition on my end. But my older daughter's a junior at Loris, so I'm from BV. I gave her a lot of flack during football when BV beat Loris this fall, so I suppose I should give her a chance to give it right back to me.
That's really fair.
Rest of the season. But speaking of wrestling seasons that have started, the girls' high school season started this week. Got to see some action at Iowa City High last night. I know Independence has held a JV tournament, and there's been some other. I think Osage had a tournament as well, so that's going full bore. Numbers look like they're continuing to increase, even though I don't have anything like official as far as participation goes. But I tell you, it looked like the numbers were growing with what I saw at Iowa City High in a 16-team tournament there last night. So kind of looking forward to seeing how that goes this year. And we need to have Riley Cole on our Gazette girls wrestling writer, who also does some announcing at the tournaments as well, and talk to her and see how she feels this how things are setting up for girls wrestling this season.
That'd be cool. I'd like to hear that.
So any any last thoughts or any parting words before we close up this week on the pitting combination?
Probably the last week before the girls really kick in full bore, and then the boys are not far behind in high school. So enjoy the college. We've got some good matches and meets coming up.
Yep, for sure. And then we'll have a holiday week to follow. So make sure to check out that action this week, whether it's girls in high school or the different levels of college wrestling that are out there. I want to thank Mark Ironside for joining us today. Always great to hear him talk about wrestling. And the Iowa State duel. Coach Briggs, thank you again for your time. Nathan Ford, thanks for your work behind the scenes here, setting this all up, allowing us to be able to add those interviews as part of the pinning combination. And Coach, to honor our late friend, G. White Schultz, one of the best wrestling supporters in the state of Iowa that I've ever known. Why don't you send us out for this week?
Let's keep wrestling on the move.
Thanks for watching, everybody.